Hi, well, welcome and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelly Fuller, and my role here at the Chamber is the Senior Vice President of the Chamber Foundation. And I want to welcome you to our conversation today for this quarter's Experience Series. I want to thank you all for being here and also thank GBQ and Right Pat Credit Union and all of our sponsors who continue to show their support of this series. It's now my great pleasure to introduce my friend and our host, Darcy Congrove, with Managing Partner at GBQ. Darcy?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to GBQ. For those of you who have not been here before, we are an accounting firm, and we just finished the worst deadline of the year, which is October 15th. That's for all the people who don't get their taxes done until the very last minute, and also for all of you who have employee benefit plans that have to be audited and turned into the Department of Labor at the last minute. So we are happy that we are on the other side of October 15th, and you will probably find happy accountants around here if you want to talk to one, as opposed to a few days ago when things were pretty rough. I'm excited about this program. I have some personal connections to some people who have lived through these situations, and so it's kind of meaningful to me. So today we're going to talk about ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed people. Significant segment of our workforce struggling to afford basic needs despite the fact that they are working. The session will delve into understanding and addressing the challenges faced by people in this situation, and try to understand that this is a moral imperative, but also a strategic business opportunity for everyone. So our panel is going to discuss the impact of ALICE on workforce stability, consumer spending, economic growth, providing actionable insights into how business can contribute to and benefit from solutions that benefit these vulnerable workers. And I can tell by the number of people that are here that you're all very interested in the topic. And I want to just share with you, I was coincidentally last night with a population of ladies, 10 of them, who are going through the New Directions Career Center program and have actually graduated. And New Directions does, works with this population all the time. I know Celeste, who leads that, is a good friend of Kelly's. And these are all ladies who have gotten themselves to a good place and have come together now in a follow-on program that teaches them how to be nonprofit board members so that they can sit at the table and share their lived experiences and really inform those other board members that are there. And these 10 ladies were so engaged that we went for about 2.5 hours talking about nonprofit financials and everything else in their lives. And they told me their stories of how they got through this experience themselves. So I'm excited to hear what our panelists are going to share about that. And now I'm going to give it back to Kelly, and she's going to introduce the panel. So thanks for being here.
Before I bring up the panel, and they're also my friends as well. I hope we'll all be friends in this room by the end of the conversation. But just to level set a bit, we're hearing so much about the growth in this region, and Columbus is a boomtown. We've experienced incredible regional growth, and we're poised to experience even more. We are reliant on workforce that can fill key roles within the organizations that are coming here and those that are currently here. We also know that with all of this great growth, many people are being left behind, or they're not fully engaged in the work in a way that they should be or could be to enhance their lives as well as the rest of the community. People are lacking resources. They're lacking support, and most important resource that people are lacking is time. So when we bring the panel up, we're going to get into a conversation about who are the people in ALICE, who are the people on the benefits cliff, what does that look like? And for us as employers and committed community members, how can we do our part to best support so that everyone in this region is experiencing the great growth that we're witnessing right now? So if I could have my friends from the panel join me at the table. And thank you, Kaylee, for making my questions really large print. I appreciate that. You have no idea. Thank you. So thanks, guys. I'm going to ask you guys to just go down the line and introduce yourself to the room. who you are, what you do, and what organization you're with. So Scott, we'll start with you and head down the line.
Morning, everybody, and Kelly, thank you for the invitation to be here. My name is Scott Johnson. I'm an employee of Aspire, which is the Workforce Development Board for Central Ohio, but my role is the director of the newly formed Central Ohio Workforce Development Network. And most of you are like, well, what the heck is that? We're about 6 months old now, and we are a collective impact model of 16 organizations, 13 of which actually provide workforce development services. So we really focus on finding no wrong door of entry for our job seekers to come in, but we're also finding ways that we can connect with employers and industry so that you don't have to maintain 13 relationships to get great talent. Tony Cunningham, who will speak in a minute, is one of my members. We have a really diverse group of organizations that are supporting this work. We're also connected with One Columbus, to have an economic development perspective, and we're connected to the Community Shelter Board because we all know that affordable housing and stable housing is incredibly important for our workforce.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Melanie Hill, and I am with United Way of Central Ohio. I serve as the leader of our data analytics team, and I'm also an state representative for the ALICE body of research. And so I'm excited to be here just to share about what ALICE is and to tell any and everybody who will listen to it. And then as far as United Way goes, you may be familiar with one of our big efforts is Success by Third Grade, where we focus on children in the early ages. And I think it relates to now because to our workforce conversation, because it matters what the children do at a young age so they can be prepared and become contributing members of our workforce. So thanks for having me.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Tony Cunningham, and I have the honor of serving as the president and CEO for the Godman Guild Association. And the Godman Guild is Columbus's oldest settlement house here in our community. We're 126 years old. We focus on education and workforce development from kindergarten to career. And so I'm excited for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to all three of you. So let's get started with what constitutes an ALICE household. We've identified that as asset limited, income constrained, yet employed. So Melanie, I'm going to start with you. Can you lead us through what do the numbers say? Like, how does someone become identified as an ALICE household?
Yes, and I think we'll have some visuals here to help us along. So as we said, as it was stated, it's an acronym: asset limited, income constrained, employed. And if you're looking at this first slide, who is ALICE? The pictures on the screen actually can help tell the story of who ALICE is. ALICE is referring to households. The body of research, I'll give you a little bit of history first. So this started in United Way of Northern New Jersey back in 2009. Someone requested a report, and fast forward to today, it has expanded into a national effort that includes 34 partner states plus DC. And each partner state has, and we're a partner state in Ohio. So there are annual reports that are produced, and the website unitedforalice.org has a plethora of additional information, interactive tools, and maps. But you can see from these, the pictures, it's going to be folks that are the forklift operators, childcare workers, the cashier, the waitress. 9 times out of 10, if you go through your work day or a weekend day, you have come in contact with someone who is an ALICE household or an ALICE person. Let's see here. Like I said, it's the data is curated kind of at the household level. We look at the geography in terms of counties because that's kind of the smallest unit of geography that's available reliably at a national level. And in the state of Ohio, we have nearly 40% of the population of households in Ohio are either ALICE or experiencing poverty. And so just to give you some numbers, I think in the state of Ohio, we have 13 or 14% of the households are in poverty, and then nearly twice as many, I think 25% of the households are what we would consider ALICE households. And I think we'll get into what the household survival budget looks like. We're going to get into that right now, or?
If you want to, go ahead. Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
so this graphic that you see here it goes a long way in explaining and helping us to understand what it means to be Alice. So the blue columns are showing the household survival budget. And what that is they've taken into account what are the kind of the median or average costs of everything from housing, transportation, childcare, taxes, technology, because you can't live and work in today's society without either a smartphone or internet access. So it takes a realistic view and puts together a realistic survival budget, not exuberant, extravagant. It's just kind of no frills. These are the basics. And the blue columns show you what it took to meet that budget for a family of four, two working people and two children. 2021, you can see the column on the left, and then the next year is 2022. That's the most recent data we have available. And you can see that the costs increased. Then if we look at the orange and green columns, that is the income and credits. So we saw in 2021, there's a lot more green. That represents like tax credits, child care, the child tax credit, and some of the pandemic era supports and stimulus payments that were available. But then we fast forward to 2022, we're seeing those things kind of fall off and expire. And while there is still an increase in wages, which is great, it's still not enough to meet that household budget. And then to the far right, you can see the federal poverty level. It's pretty obsolete, and it's not updated regularly. It's not unique or specific to the county where a person might live. So you can see all of this information and these details even at the county level, so you can understand what it's like in your community where you live, how much it really takes to make ends meet.
So thank you for that, Melanie, for giving us the data and helping us identify Alice. Scott, I'm gonna start with you and then ask others to chime in as they see fit. But we're learning about Alice. We also have heard a lot over the years about the benefits cliff. So talk about who are the workers that we're seeing here depicted, or those that we're coming in contact with every day in our lives as we go about the city. Who are the people that are the benefits cliff, and what is that, and what does that look like in relationship to someone who's in Alice?
So it's an interesting experience for anyone that is living within the federal, state, and county benefits system right now, because there's a lot of fear as they try to figure out career growth and opportunities for their families. Because the moment you step up, you step off. I was in a recent meeting with Columbus Metropolitan Housing because they're actually launching a pilot to try to see how we can mitigate the impact of the benefits cliff called Ready, Set, Rise. And one of the things that we talked about, and if we could go to Melanie's slide with the budget, the other way to think about the orange and green columns together, we call that purchasing power. And so if you think about it, if someone is receiving benefits, those benefits have a value. So as you take their income and their benefits value, that is their total collective of their purchasing power. There was a study that was done in the early 2000s in Pennsylvania, and bear with me because it's not wages that we have today. There was a single mother working full-time. She had two kids making $7.25 an hour. That was not that long ago. What they did, they studied her through her career journey. And what they found, for her to actually have the same purchasing power without any benefits at all, she had to jump from $7.25 an hour to over $24 an hour. Now let that think in. How often do you see promotions that quickly move someone that far up the ladder? It's really the same thing when you start to think about the Alice households as well, because as we start to have individuals who drop off of benefits, they're now faced with this dilemma of how do we afford the survival budget? How can we start to make these strategic career moves to be able to get us where we need to go? And so oftentimes when we talk to individuals in the community, they have a desire to grow a career, but they don't understand how they can do that to support their household, to support their children, and to provide that stable experience that they need. And that's really the challenge that we have before.
Before I open it back up to the others, I want to drill down a little bit on what you just said. So when I talked about limited resources, teeing up this conversation time, is a very critical part of that. So I'm gonna ask Tony to weigh in and the rest of you too, but what are things that if someone is working and they have so little time, but they're still expected to move up, to expand themselves, to grow out of whatever economic situation they find themselves in, what are some resources maybe that we have locally that can help support that?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's a huge challenge for individuals because we know that based on what they need to earn, their skills do not command that type of salary, right? And so at some point you have to set yourself in a situation where you can grow your skills. But if I'm working and most of the workforce programs are during the day, if I want to go to a career readiness opportunity or I want to go to a skill-based training program, I used to run an organization called Perscolas here locally. And that course was Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Plus you need homework, you need time to do your homework and study so that you can pass 2 certifications in 15 weeks. Not many people could do that and maintain an income. What am I going to do? Like drive Uber on the weekend? I got to figure out something to keep myself afloat, even though on the other side of getting those tech certifications, I can exponentially grow my income. And so there's this struggle, right? Of how can I navigate this? I can't just quit my job because I still have bills to pay. The benefits may or may not be supporting me at the level that I need to. And so there's this constant tension. And what we would see is people will start our initiative or our programs because they are unemployed, but they got to get a job. Like I got to. So then they start and they drop out. Then they start and they drop out and you get back to square one. And so I think that what we've been thinking about as workforce providers are how can we meet the needs of people where they are? So what does that look like for us in providing opportunity in terms of the timing that we do it? And can we offer evening courses and flexible courses? And I wrote a program for the county called Tech Women of Color. And I said, hey, let's start the program at 10 so that mom can get her kids off to school. And then let's end it by like 2:30 or 3 so that mom can get her kids off the bus while she's in this tech training program. And then we can navigate and figure out, childcare and all of that once she gets a job. And so it's thinking innovatively and creatively, but there are a lot of initiatives out here that the training is at the same time that they would need to be at work. And so we do constantly struggle with
I think another interesting opportunity, and it will focus more on the immigrant and refugee population. Most of those new arrivals within our community aren't native English speaking individuals. And so there is a limited language available for them to work in the job site. We have a few employers within the community that are actually partnering with our English as a second language instruction teams to look at incumbent worker training. So they're able to actually take language learning courses on the clock, on the job site to be able to promote up. So it's not just time outside of work. Are there ways that we can find time inside of work to start to skill individuals up as well? Because the moment they get off work, they have homework to help with, they have, practice, they have all the extracurriculars, they have everything they need to do within their life. And so we have to start to be really creative in that space.
That's a great segue because you've shared examples of things employers can do or to start thinking differently maybe about their workforce. Scott, I know that you've got a lot to say on this topic, but and love to hear from you and others, but you are seeing some things, Scott, I know as far as employers being creative, being innovative, as Tony said, to try to address these issues. Would you share?
Yeah, I think that idea of just simple language learning as a component is really important. There's also been a couple of initiatives that come out of the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, looking at, for those who are actually still on benefits, how we could potentially create almost like escrow accounts for individuals as they start earning more, so their benefits aren't impacted until they have a savings that is large enough to be able to offset that opportunity with purchasing power. Or maybe it gets them 2 or 3 incremental raises where they can then start to succeed and thrive. We encourage employers to really look at on-the-job training, apprenticeship models. There are so many different ways that people can earn as they learn to skill up instead of it being that traditional, I need to go to school, get a certificate to take a position. Honestly, I received my bachelor's degree not that long ago, and the demands on my family were tremendous. When we start to think of true cost of attendance, You know, as I think as employers, you design a program, you're like, okay, this makes sense. But then you don't really understand everything that's going to cost your employees to take advantage of that professional development piece. And so I really challenge you to talk to your employees, really understand if it is something that's feasible for them in their current situation for the target audience that you're helping.
Yeah, I think that that's the innovative strategies and approaches that I've heard have been phenomenal for those companies that choose to do it. And as I was telling the gentleman earlier, we talk about the cost to the bottom line and we get nervous about, letting people step away to do things at work and that. But when you think about the cost of turnover, literally, you can save yourself real dollars and cents if you just nurture the workforce that you bring on, right? And grow them up. I used to have this saying like hashtag grow your own because you're not going to just find the people walking to your door or applying to your organization that have it all together and they're ready to go with no supports needed. Very rarely, especially now. And so, we have a whole group of individuals who are untapped and available workforce, but they do look different and they need a different level of support to get in the game. And so those employers who can be innovative and figure it out, you can build some of the most loyal and amazing employees inside of your organization with putting that energy and still save and make money.
And I'll add, from the nonprofit, point of view, while we're not necessarily explicitly focused on workforce, development, but it makes me think of some of our initiatives, one of them being tax time. That's something that we would want employers to be aware of and recommend that to your employees because that is a free tax preparation opportunity. And Alice families and families that are living in poverty would qualify for that to have their taxes prepared for free. And when they've done comparisons of tax time preparation versus like paid tax preparers, on average, they're going to get the maximum return back on their taxes. So not only can they save on the tax preparation fees, but they can also walk away with more money in their pocket. Maybe they didn't know about the child tax credit or some other tax benefit that they're eligible for. And then just in general, there are lots of organizations. I can think of one of our partners, Festa, that they focus on feeding children, but they also do English ESL classes. And so there's lots of organizations and programs out there that might be indirectly supporting doing things that can support the workforce and families that are, have a hard time getting it all done.
And I think one other thing, we talked about the survival budget a little, but we should probably understand some dollars and cents as it relates to that. When you look at the survival budget for two adults with two children under 5 years old, so they're both in childcare, take a guess about what the combined hourly wage working 40 hours a week for that household needs to be. It's about $46 an hour. So when you start thinking about a lot of our entry level positions, if one parent or spouse is a cashier, another is working in logistics, they're not hitting that dollar amount. And so we have to find ways to be able to skill them up. There's also on the United for Alice website a thriving budget. And so the thriving budget for that exact same household in Franklin County is $142,000. That's just to be able to save 10% of their income and to have appropriate housing and be able to pay all of their bills. That equates to $75 an hour combined. Think about the number of positions we all have that actually would equate to half of that, $37.50 an hour. It's a big ask, right? The other thing that we also need to remember, and I think all this is important leading to the rest of our conversation, is that about 70% of the single mother-led households with children are at or below the ALICE threshold. And in that moment, somebody can be a registered nurse with a wonderful career and still not be able to pay their bills. So it's something that we just have to keep front of mind as we think about how we develop programs, as to how we think about how we support the employees, because there has to be different ways that we can approach this to really get individuals to be able to keep up with the increased cost of housing because it's limited, the increased cost of food because of what's happening with inflation. Childcare is the same thing because it's limited. And so I just really want to put front of mind for all of us that That idea that that registered nurse that could be taking care of one of your family members in the hospital, they could be struggling to make ends meet.
Thank you for that. Before we pivot into the rest of the conversation, I just wanted a couple call outs. Thank you, Melanie, for sharing those resources. How can employers, if they want to make sure, is there a kit or a website address or something to like for the tax preparation, for example?
If you go to the United Way of Central Ohio's website, I believe there's a tab that for tax time. Or you can probably actually just Google tax time and it'll lead you to the United Way of Central Ohio website.
Thank you for that. So that's a great benefit that I could bring to my employees and just talk about it to make sure that they're not maybe being taken advantage of by paying a huge amount for a preparation. And to your point, maybe not getting the maximum benefit that they deserve anyway. And Scott also mentioned incumbent training as a strategy for attracting and retaining workers and also bettering the production value at your own facility. I'd be remiss if I didn't just put a bug in the ear again about Tech Cred, which is a state-funded program where you can be reimbursed for training that you're going to provide that leads to a credential or a certificate reimbursed by the state of Ohio. And that could be another way, again, of building up your workforce to, again, help keep them there. We know, as Tony mentioned, the cost of turnover. So I want to turn now to something relatively very new, which is something that our friends here are part of. Scott, I'll kick off with you again with the Employee Resource Network. We're hearing about this. What is it? How did it come about? And what are its goals?
So the Employer Resource Network is an initiative that the Central Ohio Workforce Development Network is getting ready to launch. We're hoping to be live in spring of 2025. The idea is that it is an employer-funded opportunity for our network members to provide a success coach, which is a career coach and a social worker combined, on site with a dedicated, consistent time each week at your facility to help your employees with life. How many of your HR team, how many of your leadership team oftentimes can't do their actual work because they're forced to become social workers to find resources, to help put out fires because there's a transportation issue, a childcare issue, a family member's in the hospital. The idea is that we can provide a success coach on site with access 5 days a week, on site 1 day a week, to be able to help mitigate those challenges and to really help stabilize households. The idea is that we promote retention instead of turnover, which in turn gives the employer a great return on investment. The way that we actually do the calculations is based off of the estimation by SHRM that it's $7,800 to recruit, onboard, hire, orientate, train a new employee, right? So to have a success coach on site 1 day a week, 52 weeks a year, if we help you retain 4 individuals, it's a break even. There are other employer resource networks that are available within the state and around the country. We just don't have one in Franklin County. They oftentimes see between 1,000 and 1,400% return on investment. And so what we're trying to do is find a way that we can support you as an employer in helping stabilize your workforce so that we can get them to do exactly what we've all talked about. How do you get to a growth mindset as an entry-level worker? Well, we have to be able to have you help pay your bills. You're not in a constant panic mode to try to figure things out. You're able to actually think about what a career in the future looks like. If we know what your professional development model is, we can encourage that. If we know when there are promotion opportunities available that people might self-select out of because they don't think they're qualified to apply for it, we can help encourage those type of things. And then the great thing is, as you promote your workforce, guess what? Between all 13 organizations, between workforce and workforce adjacent services, we served about 100,000 people last year. So we also have the talent to help you backfill your entry-level positions once we help you stabilize and help your team grow.
I would be remiss if I didn't jump in here on the backfill piece. Speaking on behalf of all workforce development providers, especially in the nonprofit space, partnership is critical for us. We are in the trenches. My team is dealing directly with those who are either struggling to land a job or maybe in that Alice household situation. And the reality I had when I read the report is that many of us are working with individuals who are coming out of poverty, and the highest we can get them just with training alone is to Alice. And then one small thing and they fall back down to poverty. So there's this cycle between Alice and poverty, which then becomes mental health wise stressful. It becomes discouraging. People then drop out of the process altogether. And so if we can find a way to, yes, we can get you to Alice, but there is a pathway out of that that is not going to harm you before it hurts you, then that's the part, those are the partnerships that we want to have with employers. So when you talked about maybe there's an opportunity on site, my organization does not only ESOL for non-English speakers, we also do if you need your high school equivalency. There are a lot of adults, millions of adults in this country who do not have their high school equivalency, and they are working, but they cannot grow their career because they don't have that credential, and they can't layer on top of those credentials. Excuse me, because many of them say your requirement, your initial requirement is you got to have a high school diploma or a GED, right? And so, but then there's some shame attached to I am 35 years old and don't have my GED. So we try to take the shame out of it. It's another credential. And if I can get it while on site or right after work, I can just walk downstairs to the training room before I even go home. I can on site work with an organization, do all of that, and then go home and be with my family. Any unique partnership like that that we can build with employers, we are open to it, as well as what I would call customized training opportunities. So you have certain skill sets, you want to partner with a nonprofit to say, these are the skill sets that I need trained. And if you can get people through a training in this, I can at least guarantee them an interview to see if we can get them into our organization. Those have been really successful for employers that have leaned in and wanted to partner with nonprofit training providers.
Thank you for that. As a grandchild of two people that didn't complete high school, in fact, my grandmother stopped at the fourth grade. So there was a huge push, obviously, for myself and this generation to go to college and to better ourselves and to work really hard, and that there would be, this incredible outcome. People do that still, but they're not necessarily seeing the great outcome, and it's still a struggle, is what we're seeing. But thank you for reminding us about that. I want to ask about when since we're talking about retention and upskilling and how costly it can be when we're not kind of mindful of that. Let's talk about on the front end when we're thinking about Alice households specifically and some of the jobs that we have available. What could an employer's recruitment effort look like? Should it look different, or are there issues to consider to improve my recruitment process as I'm thinking about the jobs I have and who might be coming in to apply for them, might be in that Alice space?
So I would think I want to mention an initiative that we're a part of at Godman Guild called the Tear the Paper Ceiling campaign. And it's all around skills first hiring and taking away degree inflation. There are a lot of people that have gained very valuable skills and they don't have a college degree. I didn't get mine until I was an adult working for the state. I've been working for the state for 9 or 10 years before I went to college. And I got 2 degrees only because I hit this ceiling of any other roles I wanted to apply for. The state started putting college degree requirements on everything, including being a receptionist. Like it was ridiculous, you guys. And so we need to rethink about skills first, and how do we interview in a way and look at those applications and those resumes and say, okay, let's look at the totality of someone's experience in their life, and then let's give them a shot, right? And be very clear on your side about what it is that you're looking for. And sometimes it's not even technical skill, because every employer will say, if you can just get them here and have them come on time and be here consistently, I can train them in anything. Great. I can do that in career readiness, right? But what are those skills and talents that you really need? And then how do you identify that people have them, along with curiosity and being a self-initiator and those types of things? And so I would say when you're recruiting, talk to your teams, because a lot of times leadership will say, just give me somebody that wants to come to work on time and I'll train them. And then HR will screen those people out because they don't look right on paper. And so we know that there are some roles, of course, that you have to have, formal training in order to do them. But there's many, many jobs and many careers where you don't. And we need to find a way to invite everyone to the process and give them opportunity, especially if they've been working really hard to kind of build themselves up. And then everything is a no because you didn't meet this minimum qualification or that minimum qualification. And many of our job descriptions are antiquated. So I would also say, sit down with your team and go through the job description and the minimum qualifications to make sure they match what's really happening in the world today. And they're not some antiquated thing that was generated, 15, 20 years ago that we haven't really even looked at to see if that's what's relevant to today's market.
take a look at those job descriptions and also take a look at those job postings. You know, are they written from a perspective of we invite you in, we want you here, or is the job posting written from a perspective of I'm trying to screen a bunch of people out? So looking at both the internal and the external way that we talk about those jobs. We touched on training and upskilling for retention, but when we think about the life cycle of the employee, going back to my family again, but my dad and my uncles all worked for DuPont in Circleville, and they all graduated high school, went away to the military for 4 years, came back and started a good job in a factory and retired after 37 years and moved to Myrtle Beach. It seemed like it was a formula, it was a plan. But that doesn't happen necessarily anymore. We don't have people staying in careers for 30 years, for 10 years even. So we have people coming into work, they're in that Alice designation. What can we do as employers, not just to keep them with us because we know it's costly if we lose people, but what can we do with the focus on those employees to help upskill them, not just the training itself, but what other resources could we bring forward?
Yeah, I think one of the best things, and it's really why we as a network decided to launch the Employer Resource Network, and really making sure that you have the resources that are needed for everyday life. You know, a lot of companies offer a traditional EAP program where you call an 800 number and you talk to someone who maybe you can't relate to. In many instances with those EAPs now, there's a wait. You're actually scheduling an appointment and a callback, and sometimes it's 3 or 4 weeks. That moment is immediate in which they need that resource and that support. So I think being really mindful of the quality of the benefit that you're giving is important. I think on top of that, there's a huge focus nationally right now around the concept of what is a good job. I was recently at a conference for the National Fund for Workforce Solutions in Memphis, and we were talking about what the elements of good jobs are. And when you talk to employees, guess what they don't mention? Pay, because they know what the position pays. They know going in what they're going to receive as that portion of their benefit for working for you. What they're looking for is a place where they feel safe, they feel recognized, they feel valued, and that they're asked their input. If you see that you have turnover, don't be afraid to have a genuine conversation with someone to really understand why they're leaving. Maybe it's the fact that you don't offer benefits for 180 days. And if you had offered them at the 30, 60, or 90-day mark, they might have stayed. But because of life situations, they can't be employed to have the health care that they need. Maybe it is something around childcare or a start time or an end time. You know, the days of these are the set standards that we expect. And I know in some positions it has to be that way, but we have to look at people as the people they are and value them as employees to be able to get them to stay with us.
I also would say it's important if you have a mentoring and coaching environment. A lot of people come and they're eager and they're ready and they have no idea. I mean, I have it on my team, right? I went to Goblin Guild in January 2023, took over a long-standing organization, and there were individuals in there that when I asked them certain things, they had never been coached. Managers that were moved up that had never been coached or poured into or developed. And people will leave because they don't feel valued and they don't feel like there's a place for them or they don't feel like they're getting developed. And so they don't see a pathway. You know, if no one is supporting me and, you know, giving me good and honest feedback, coaching me, taking me out to lunch and telling me, listen, that was a little tricky what you did or said. Maybe you could have handled it this way and that so I can avoid the landmines and the pitfalls. Because keep in mind, you could be bringing someone into your organization that this is their first venture into the world of work. And for them, if they fall down too far, they may not come back because their self-esteem and other things are challenged. And so, you know, I think having an environment where there's coaching and mentoring, where you're willing to build people and invest in people, get them a buddy, find a group internally. There's always people that want to help inside your organization. Like, oh yeah, send them to me. I'll work with them. I'll train them. I'll take them to lunch. I'll have that difficult conversation with them. Find those individuals in your organization that are willing to help you grow people, and people will be loyal and people will stay when they feel valued, they feel safe, and they feel like they can fail forward in an environment where they can continue to also see a career path.
And don't be afraid to leverage organizations like the Columbus Chamber. You know, there's strength in numbers. And in many instances, organizations like this can help you identify where there are opportunities. We have a great human resource group in Morocco. There are several industry sector partnerships out as well. And so figuring out how you build that proper talent pipeline within your industry is really important. You know, when we talk about talent pipelines, we as workforce, we want to help you dig the pond and stock the pond. How you fish out of it's up to you as an individual organization. But that's really how you start to grow your talent. We are actually partnering with Adam H on a grant that we received through the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Services, where in the community behavioral health space, and I think this is something to really consider for everyone. What they've seen with their exponential growth is I'm a good social worker, I'm a good counselor, I'm doing great with my caseload. We're adding staff. Guess what? Now you're a supervisor as well. Go forth and conquer. And what happens is they have turnover because they haven't given that person the tools that they need or reduce their workload any to now have to supervise plus carry the same caseload. Because in that business, billable hours is billable hours is billable hours, and that's how the organization survives. And so part of what we're doing as an industry for those organizations as a collective is we're helping design a leadership academy with OSU so that they can start to send individuals on a quarterly basis into this leadership academy as an industry with standards to say, here's how you lead. And they're going to pay them their hourly wage while they're doing it. So there's an incentive for them to take a leadership position. It isn't a thankless position anymore. So I think there are a lot of creative things that you can do within an industry to really think about it as well.
Melanie, I want to ask you, so you and I met just a couple months ago, and that was my first interaction in hearing about Alice. I had not heard the acronym before that, didn't understand kind of the research and what was behind it. That was a conversation over lunch with about 5 women, and I learned at that point, and we're having this conversation here today. What else can we do as leaders, as business leaders and people in the community to help share, to help evangelize about Alice? Where can we support you in the work that you're doing?
Spread the word. So I would say to go to the website and explore it. Set aside some time because it's like going down a rabbit hole. I would say to download the report. The most recent report is a 2024 Alice in the Cross Currents update. That's about a 14-page report that is at the state level. And then there's another one, Alice in Focus, and it's a focus on children. And so it talks about households with children in them, which is also very relevant to today's conversation. You can explore the interactive tools that are on the website. There's a wage tool. There's a legislative district tool, which might be very timely in this election season, where you can go to United for Alice legislative district tool and click on a district in the state of Ohio or in any other partner state. And it'll show what is the Alice population in any given representative's district. And that could be really powerful information and actionable information that you can use as a constituent. It can help any elected officials be more informed about who it is they are supposed to be representing and serving. So that would be number one, and just spread the word. We want to make Alice a household name. We want it to be just common knowledge across all sectors in our community, because if we can start to frame things in terms of Alice instead of, for example, in terms of the federal poverty level, which we all know is outdated, and you have to use exponential, like 200% of the federal poverty level to get to any kind of meaningful eligibility requirement. But Alice is much more useful. It's regularly updated, and it's something that people can look at that and understand it a lot more easily than some of these other measures that are out there.
From that tool, the 2024 report for the state, either the general one or the one specifically focused on children, was there anything that jumped out at you that kind of made you take pause or sit back a bit?
Well, a couple of things. One of the things, Scott already mentioned it, but the prevalence of single female-headed households that are Alice and below at 74%. I mean, come on, what are we doing here as a society? People just cannot survive off of that. That really stands out to me. And then persistent disparities always stand out to me. So me as an African American, it pains me to see time after time that people of color are consistently experiencing hardship at greater proportions compared to our white counterparts. And so we just have to think about that and think about what systems and institutions are at play here and what can we do to help stop that and kind of just be part of the solution.
I ask this every time I think that we're in an experience series, but the chamber, as we know, is made up of, great, incredible partners, large, medium, and small. We have a large number of small businesses. If I'm a small business owner or operator, and I really do want to support my workforce, what are some of the things that I could take advantage of that I may not be considering, or it may not be too onerous for me to take that on? We are asking small business owners to do a lot.
I don't know of any of the direct initiatives, but what I would say is you can become creative as a small business. You can be way more creative than larger organizations. I know that several years ago there was a rush on social enterprises, and those were for-profit businesses with a social mission. And they came up with some different strategies like resource accounts that your employees can tap into if they get a flat tire, or their battery dies on their car, or they're short $100 on their rent, which could put them in eviction status. Some things that they can tap into that and then maybe slowly pay it back over time out of their paycheck so the money goes back into the pot to help someone else. There are some unique strategies because I will tell you a flat tire can derail someone, right? You're frustrated because they're constantly late for work and they're constantly missing. Then they get a flat tire and that's that last straw. You're like, listen, you've been late for the last time, or you've been no call, no show, but they may have been frustrated, which is why there wasn't this whole, I got to call my employer. And so how do we set up supports internally that we have agency over, that we can say, you know what, we're willing to put this out here so we can build our workforce and then support them in their development and growth, understanding that they may not stay with you, but you can always have a pipeline to bring someone else in, because many of us, I talk about it in my own organization, my direct service roles, those are not last stop jobs. I don't expect that, because trust me, I have some Alice households working in my organization, right? And so my hope is that I'm giving them what they need and training them and exposing them and leading them in a way that they come to me one day and say, Miss Tony, I got the opportunity of a lifetime. I hate to leave you. I love the mission. I'll give back to the mission, but I got to go because I got another opportunity. And it was all because of the skills that I built while I was working for you. And so, if we can come up with some creative ways as small business owners to support it, I promise you what you get back will be tenfold.
I'm going to look at a little more of a systems level.
Yeah.
As you leave, there are cards on the check-in desk for the Central Ohio Workforce Development Network. Hit the QR code, take a look at our website. Feel free to reach out and email us, because a lot of what Tony's talking about, those are things that our members can help support you with, whether it is considering joining the Employer Resource Network as we launch. We've recently launched an opportunity for employers to connect for hiring practices with all 13 organizations as well, and we do it virtually in an hour. So there are a lot of different things that we can do as a system to support you. It may be that we need to help you survey your employees to understand what good jobs need, so that we can help you look at benefits and say, if you tweak this, if you tweak that, you'll have a better response. Just don't do it alone, y'all. Like, this world is way too hard to try to do everything on your own. That's why we're forming our collective impact network, because as individual organizations, we do a lot of great work, but what we can do as a collective will be so much more for this community. And I encourage you to look at it the same way.
Thank you. Now's the time in our conversation for me to open up for all of you to participate. If you have questions for the panel, just indicate that by raising your hand. And I think Kaylee's going to help me by walking around with the mic. So any questions so far for the panel?
Hello. So I have a question. Does any of the data talk about seniors that have to re-enter their workforce and what that looks like for them and the pay gap, and maybe just having to live off of Social Security, but it's not enough, and what that looks like for them?
There is a little bit of information. I don't know if it goes into that detail, but there is a portion of this research that focuses on the age 65 plus in the workforce, and they have actually a higher prevalence of ALICE households and poverty-stricken households. It is available in there. I can follow up with you to find where exactly it is.
Hello. I am like somebody who relates very much so to the Alice household. And I just want to really, it's more of a comment. Thank United Way for that tax preparation. And that's something that is a like very applicable resource for a lot of people that are in situations such as myself. And also relating back to the work, I'm also a Gen Z person. And I did not know this until I started coaching other Gen Z people. So when I'm, excuse me, working with other young adults and helping them figure out how to navigate these new roles, being able to go back to my organization, which I also work for Aspire with Scott. So being able to go back to my organization and get that extra coaching, receive that recognition for the work that I'm completing makes the difference. It truly does from the employee perspective, because when you don't feel valued at your jobs, you don't want to stay. If you're always being critiqued and not coached, there is a difference in that. So I just really want to highlight that as well from the perspective of like participant. So thank you guys so much for all of the information and work that you do.
How's it going? My name is Paul Kerner. I'm the founder and COO of New Age Golf, and we are a organization where we get kids to college through sports. But at the same time, we have a mentorship piece where we have success coaches and people that are my age that are pretty successful in their space to guide kids through that journey and make a backup plan. And I noticed you mentioned that there's a kind of success and leadership program for people that are kind of my age. I'm 24, and I was wondering if that could be passed on to younger generations like kids so we could build them up to be the future leaders.
I would say that there are many, many, many youth serving nonprofit organizations out there that you can connect with to make sure that young people get enrolled. I know that we have one that we're launching, our youth and young adult workforce initiative. There's the Columbus Urban League's Work Readiness University Training Initiative. They have many youth running through there. But when you look at leadership development, there's so many initiatives, even some that focus on sports, leadership through sports, that you can partner with. So we can chat afterwards if you want about that. But I think partnering with other organizations, there's power, like Scott said, in the collective. And sometimes we try to start organizations and do everything in it, like we can boil the ocean. And the truth of the matter is there's somebody doing it out there already. And if you partner together, you can be stronger together because you can focus on your part, but know that that other need is getting met through your partner that you are working with, kind of doing a warm transfer and a partnership to make sure that those young people get what they need. So I think just coming together collectively, and then for yourself, there's so many leadership development organizations for young professionals out here. There's the Columbus Young Professionals Club. There's the African American Leadership Academy. There's a lot to build up leaders like yourself because you are the individuals who are going to drive us forward in the years to come. And we want to make sure that the wisdom that's out there can be passed down and poured in as you bring your innovation and your new ideas. So on two fronts, one for you as a leader and one for the young people that you serve. I think there's opportunities out there for both.
This has been really insightful. I really appreciate it. I'm Brad Griffith. Wondering, I've got two questions. Student loan debt, it seems to be a big issue for a lot of our employees, even though some of them are not in the ALICE, above the ALICE threshold. So any thoughts about student loan debt and how employers can help with that? And then maybe tougher question. As an employer, I would like to be infinitely flexible where do I draw the line, or any tips for how I draw the line between employee assistance and being flexible and understanding, and we have some needs for our employees need to be reliable. Where, I don't know, it's a tough gray area. How do we navigate?
The network that Scott is talking about, it could be you're a great support in that. But I will tell you, I just had this conversation in another nonprofit CEO group. We were talking about how your employees come to you and they're like, I got this thing and I just can't, I got to go, or something's happened. And I was thinking about that because I'm experiencing that as well, right? And for me, I I approach it from the standpoint of let's have a conversation about what you want to be and where you want to go. So I know your career goals. I know what you're trying to do. And what I will share with you is you have to get the white noise, call it, of your life together if you really want your career to grow. So I'm going to challenge you to kind of go back and assess what's happening around you because it's impacting your ability to grow your career. And give people the agency to say, you know what, I need to take a look because it is some of the things that I don't have in order, I haven't dealt with, are causing me to miss a lot of work, are causing me not to be fully present at work. And so doing it from a standpoint of a coaching around you have desires, dreams, goals, and a career that you want to build. And there are things that will hold you back unless you can get them in their proper order in your life. And so I think that's a good conversation to make people think and then go, maybe I need to build my village, build my support, do some other things. On the student loan debt, if you find out, let me know. I'm that girl too. But I know that there's this whole thing happening nationally and at the federal level around student loan debt. And so for me, what I've done is I've just tried to do my research and follow the little red ballie to determine how I can best navigate not having my entire check taken because I decided to go get degrees because I thought I needed them to get to where I needed to go and build a career in this country. So I think following the national trend and the national conversation is going to be huge as we watch it unfold and then see how we can navigate. But as an employer, I don't know if you can build your own forgiveness program. You work here for X number of years. If y'all can help pay off a little bit to kind of, I mean, there's just so many things that we have to try to navigate, and there's only so much you can do as an employer. But if you have the ability to build your own forgiveness program, that might be something that we could think about.
The other thing that I'll throw in there around the idea of supporting your employees, I think that's another essential part of why we're excited about this employer resource network. It's where I think of it like a parent-child relationship. You want to be their friend, but in the end, you're their parent. It's just like with an employee, you want to be their friend, you want to be supportive, but in the end, you have a business to run, you have goals you have to hit, you have a work unit you need to protect. By having an independent third party available to take some of that relationship away, it allows you to be the employer and it allows us to try to help support and find creative ways to do that, where we can also provide you with context that an employee may not give you because there may be something else going on that they just don't want getting out among their employees. And so, we can help balance that type of work as well.
And I want to add one last thing in there. Just from my experience working at United Way, any opportunities for cross training and breaking down silos, I think can maybe insulate you from if there's an employee that has to step away unexpectedly. If there's any opportunities where an employee could be exposed to the other work or cross trained and could step in a pinch, we have found ourselves in that position where we're understaffed and we just got to kind of pick up the slack and hopefully that's temporary.
Hello, my name is Matthew Glover, right here. Great discussion. Quick question. I've heard this concept called no wrong door. I think I said that right. Can you talk a little bit about how organizations can be invited in to participate in that referral network, or is it exclusive? Can you just share a little bit more about that so that,
So the initial no wrong door of entry for our workforce development network, the Central Ohio Workforce Development Network, is really focused on our 13 organizations that provide workforce services. As I mentioned, we're about 6 months into this world as of actually Tuesday. So We're going fast and furious trying to asset map, really understand what everybody does and does well so that we can start moving individuals among our organizations for best services, best outcomes. Because we know that some individuals will go to a particular organization because it's close to home, a family member went there, a friend went there, and they recommended it. But we also know that there may be another organization in our network that will do something better. And so we're working on really establishing our referral system right now. I think, Tony, I'm going to kind of look at you leading my infrastructure work group. We're hoping within the next 6 months we'll be functional in some way of doing referrals internally like that. We believe that our success coaches in our ERN will help also get us to a better and stronger referral space outside of workforce with all those workforce adjacent things that we need. And then at that point, we will start looking at bringing other organizations into our network. I'm a big fan of Tuckman's principles of team building. We don't want to constantly storm. We need to norm and we need to perform first. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Hi, I'm Laura Fish, co-founder of New Gen Leader Lab and principal consultant with Alphavate Talent Strategies. And my primary question is going to be for Melanie, but this is just on my mind, the comment about tuition, student loan repayment. I don't have the facts about how to do it, but what Tony was saying about, is there a way for employers to maybe provide that help after a certain period of time? Just this past week, this is something that flew by in my social media. I saw there is at least a company, or there are some companies that are providing as a benefit student loan repayment. Maybe you're aware of that. But as somebody who has started a small business who have a 401k, a lot of the people in their 20s just didn't participate in the 401k. So my suggestion would be maybe there's a way to, if you have that authority, to play with the numbers there and make that work. I don't know. So my question is, with this primarily Gen Z that are in the workforce now, a lot of times the data that we see, so like the Alice threshold talks about families with children, our young people are having a harder time launching, right? And a lot of people are not even working at all. And so my question is, do you have data? And I was trying to pull it up on the site here on single people without children, and you know what those numbers are that fall in that Alice threshold?
Not off the top of my head. I want to say it is, yeah, it's a pretty low number, but there are, it's like they're 25 though.
It's interesting when you look at the report, and I'm a data geek, so Melanie and I get along really, really well. It breaks it down by age, but it doesn't break it down by household structure with age. So you can see the 25 and under category, and I believe that there is a pretty strong number there. But when you go to household structure, the single household is by far the lowest. And I want to say it was at 30% of all or below, compared to some of the other categories.
I think though that when you think about that, keep thinking in terms of they may not be represented because they have fallback. They live with their parents, right? They stay home longer. And so they wouldn't be reflected in the group that's out here struggling, trying to find an apartment, make ends meet and do all of that as a single person working an entry level role, because a lot of times there's a safety net for those individuals to be able to live in other households. Now they may be a part of an Alice household and they just live there and they work from there. But in terms of launching, I think we would probably be a little hard pressed because a lot of times our young people can, kind of move in and stay with relatives or family or what have you. And so we wouldn't be able to get a pure number. Question all the way in the back, too.
Hi there. I'm Derek Galloway. I work or volunteer in the Haraco organization. I also partner with organizations all across Ohio, but on workforce. Call myself a workforce mechanic, if you will. And I'm wondering if there's places that we can get the information. So tax time, employer resource network. Is there a landing page on the chamber page that I could direct these organizations to and help direct the other Haraco members and the HR people that I associate with?
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Nick Sheriff. I work with the Columbus Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Woo. So you guys have talked a lot about the income constrained portion of Alice and kind of what that looks like for these households and strategies to help in that way. I wonder if you could take a few moments to define what asset limited means for these households and any strategies you're aware of to help them in that.
I think asset limited is going to be referring to um, assets, including everything from home ownership to 401ks to investments. And some of those not direct income wealth building opportunities. And part B, speaking about how to address it.
I would say too, when you think about asset limited, what comes to my mind initially is I don't even have a car, right? I borrow my friend's car. I don't have reliable transportation to get to work. I may or may not have a cell phone that has all of the bells and whistles so that I can engage from my phone. I may not have internet, depending upon where I live. I may not have stable housing, not just don't own a home. I'm asset limited because I'm on the verge every month or two of eviction because I keep falling behind in my rent. So I don't have any assets that I can even cash in to get more income to cover the basic needs. And that would be where those limitations, I think, do fall, aside from home ownership and some of the other things that we think about as assets.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tammy Townsend. I'm a licensed certified financial planner with my own practice. And you touched on the wealth side. So at what point are we trying to introduce, I know they're going from basically surviving to thriving, but I'm always interested in when do we start peppering in the learning opportunities beyond the financial literacy to start building that wealth? What does that look like?
So I think you can look like a lot of different things. There are great resources within our community, and I look to you as employers to say, how do you embed it within your culture? How do you really support your employees to understand how they can build assets, how they can build wealth? Really coaching on, I think about 401k meetings that was mentioned earlier. How many people actually pay attention in those? You really get people to understand what the benefits of $20 a day at age 18 or $20 a paycheck at age 18 means for you long term. I think we miss golden opportunities in that nature. There are a lot of workforce adjacent programs that our members offer. Columbus Urban League 700 credit score. There's others that offer home buying opportunities. So there are a lot of things that our nonprofits can bring to you through this concept of, and I'm going to go back to it again, the Employer Resource Network, where we can connect to things like the Financial Empowerment Center for the city. Maybe you can't afford an individual financial planner, but there are ways that you can get one-on-one counseling, coaching, really help you work through fixing things that are preventing you from utilizing your credit in a positive way so that you aren't paying 25% interest on a car loan. You're paying 7% interest on a car loan. That's a game changer for a family that's an Alice household. And so there are a lot of ways that we can all support that effort as well.
Yeah, I would say that when individuals are going through this transition, in this transformation in our training programs and that, you kind of see this relationship with money and you know it as a financial planner, it's an emotional relationship, right? And a lot of times when people are about to come into money, they think about all the things that they've been deprived of, they're going to run out and buy. I'm going to go out and get the best cell phone. I'm going to go out and get another car. For women, we go beauty. I'm going to go get my hair done, my nails done, and all these things that require upkeep. Oh, sorry.
Come on now.
All these things. Oh yeah, no, men is sneakers. Don't get me started on the sneakers.
At my
Right?
barber.
And so there's all these things that we think about that when I get my job, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go do X. And so I know in our workforce training and what I've seen be successful in the past is, embedding the conversation in so that before they start making the move and say, listen, let's talk about, do you understand savings? Do you understand having a safety net so that one catastrophe doesn't set you back 10? Do you understand that when you get that newer or upgraded cell phone, that bill that's going to come is going to be this much more? They may sell you on for the first 60 days or the first 6 months. It's $9.99 a month, and it's going to jump to $99.99 a month. Like really educating people and trying to help them have a more healthy view and relationship with money before you get it. And that way, when you get it, and giving them a plan. So you do know when you start making this money, let's calculate FICA. There's people that don't even understand the taxes that are going to come out of the check. And then this is what you're going to take home. And remember, this is how much your rent is. This is how much you need monthly to just meet the basics. And so we have those conversations with people. And then once they get beyond that, we can talk about, and then there are other ways that you can save. I mean, one of the ways that I started a long time ago was those, it's funny, I tried it. The thing where you won't miss the money that comes out. I had like a digit account and it just took money randomly. It looked at my algorithm of how I spend money on my checking account, and digit would take a little money here, a little money here. And one day I clicked on my digit account and I had like $1,000 in there. It's like, how did I get $1,000? Because the 5 and 10 and 15 bucks that it took, I didn't really miss. Right. And then I looked up. So teaching people strategies like that, right? Where you can, someone can save for you. And then when you see it and you're like, wow, I've saved up $500. And then there are organizations that would do a match depending upon your income and stuff. You can get in a program where if you take these financial courses and you save 500, they'll put 500 in your account. So we explain these types of opportunities to individuals. We partner with organizations like PNC, who supports Godman Guild, to come in and do financial literacy and training during workforce training classes. So you can begin to understand when you come into this new income, you have to be smart about how you parcel it out, so that you don't end up in a worse situation than before you were working. So I agree that we have to start those conversations early. Sometimes though, when people are in survival mode and they just think, as soon as I get my check, I'm going here. And we've got to try to combat that emotional relationship first.
Well, join me if you will in thanking the panel, my friends and great collaborators. Just a couple things before we say goodbye. I want to I had a few takeaways. I'm sure you all did too, but it was kind of an eye opener for me to hear 40% of households in Ohio are designated Alice households. That's a shocking number. I loved also when we're looking at bringing people into our organizations, really being intentional and looking at the person in their totality. Look at applicants as a whole person. And please, please, please follow our friends at United Way and Unite for Alice and look at that data, look at those reports and see what those takeaways mean to you. I also want to thank our all of our sponsors and supporters, especially our friends at Right Pat Credit Union who have continued to sponsor the Columbus Chamber and our Experience series. And thank you for recognizing the importance of facilitating these conversations with the Central Ohio community. So thank you, Right Pat. I'm going to move into mom mode and remind everyone to please take your parking ticket and have it validated at the front desk. We don't want anyone to miss out on that. And thank you to GBQ for being our host in this beautiful space, for also allowing us this time to have these great conversations. We hope that you'll join us again for a future Columbus Chamber event. And again, thank you all for your membership, your commitment, and your support to the Columbus Chamber. Have a great day.